What's going on, fellow alchemists? Welcome to Astrology. Today we'll be talking about the sun in the 7th house, how you can go about interpreting that in your chart to get a more accurate reading when you're reading your own or reading somebody else's. So let's just get straight into it. So the sun in the 7th house, I think we need to go through what the 7th house represents first before we touch on what the sun does in there. The 7th house is your partnerships. This is the point in your chart where it's all about the romantic relationships you form, the business dealings you form, the relationships you tend to gravitate towards, and the people you try to attract into your life. So the 7th house is all about the diplomacy. It's all about the alliances you make. It's all about the group and social groups you formulate around yourself. It's about the style and nature of the relationships you're trying to look for, what kind of platitudes fit into those relationships to form them up. Because what you need to remember is that the 7th house is pulling from the polarity of the 1st house. The 1st house is the house of the self, the house of the ascendant. And the house of the ascendant pulls from the polarity of the 7th house. So everything in the 1st house is about how you project yourself into the world. And everything in the 7th house is about how you try and acquire things from outside of the world into your life. So how the things you project from yourself into the world, and then how you project the things from outside the world into your life. So that's predominantly what you would define the 7th house as, because it's your descendant. And basically, in simple psychology, when you look at the style of the 7th house, you realize that the 7th house is basically things that are already within us, but we might not be consciously aware of it. We might not be confident enough to display it. We might not be willing to go and explore those personality traits and bring them out into the world. So what we do is we look for them in other people. So you might have, for example, the sun in the 7th house, and you might have those personalities in who you are, but a lot of the time you might not feel completely comfortable, or you might not be aware that you have those qualities, and through personal work and spiritual growth, you become more attuned to that type of energy in your chart and in yourself. But for the meantime, you might look for that energy in other people. So just always keep that in mind, that the 1st house is about self. The 7th house is also about self, but it's about what we look for in other people to define ourselves. So when we bring the 7th house here, and we bring Libra into this, as I said, it's all about partnerships, relationships, business dealings, your immediate social construct, what kind of people you want in your life, and what kind of dynamics you bring to those groups. But when you bring the sun into this area, you tend to be gravitated towards people who display solar energy. Solar energy in the sense of, confidence, gravitas, importance, authority, certainty, a surety. So when you bring in the sun into the 7th house, you tend to look for those people who exhibit those characteristics. However, the work that needs to be done here in particular is because it's in your 7th house, it's in your descendant, it's part of who you are in particular. And you just need to be able to realize that a lot of the time, the things you are looking for in the 7th house are actually the things that are already very present in your life. You just have to be confident enough to access that and work with that energy. So now that we've defined the 7th house and we've sort of defined the characteristics of what the sun represents in the 7th house, you need to understand that a lot of the time during the duration of growing into your sun sign and acquiring that solar energy is where you will specialize later in life. The 7th house and the sun in the 7th house basically will take time to get into that state of mind and to integrate that personality through the process of the cardinal cross into your immediate life. So for a while you will be projecting it until you're able to insulate that energy and implement it into your life so that you become that person rather than looking for that person outside of you. But for that to happen, you have to go through all the steps. You have to break down the self-conscious, the self-conscious feel that you have towards how people view you and actually live your truth. And again, a lot of people don't display the solar energy because of this until later in their lives, when they are more confident and when they simply don't care what you think. But there are cases where people are very good at displaying that solar energy at a very early stage in their development, a lot of the time it's because they're either forced to, or there have been foundations to support them to grow and come out from that part of their chart and become and display more of that energy into their lives. So because the 7th house is part of the very personal cardinal cross of matter, it affects all the angular houses, which is the ascendant, the imam coeli, the descendant, and the medium coeli. All of that tends to be very prevalent and very personal in your lives. So a lot of the energy will come in with cardinal energy. It will be the initiation energy, and it will start processes in your life. And with the 7th house in particular, so always be aware of what's sitting on top of your 7th house in regards to what star sign is there. But it also depends on what kind of conjunctions, what kind of aspects or squares in particular, which are challenging to your sun, which is sitting in your 7th house, are there for you to look at, because you will usually be very able to point and pinpoint specific aspects and specific dealings that you've had throughout your life with other people by looking at what kind of aspects are being aspected towards your sun and whatever other planets are sitting inside the 7th house. So please don't forget to subscribe. If you like this video, drop a like, drop some comments down below if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one when I finally go into the 8th house. Until then, take care of yourself. Stay well.